So we are in Exodus 26, the tabernacle coverings, framework, and curtains. And I'll read the look section there, and then we'll jump into our text. I think the goal would be to get through chapter 26 and also hand out 27 to you and talk about the courtyard and the oil that will be used in the tabernacle. So, without further ado, the dimensions of the tabernacle were 30 cubits long, 10 cubits wide, and 10 cubits high, 45 by 15 by 15 feet, give or take. That's not an exact measurement. These dimensions are computed from the size of the framework. The inside was covered with linen curtains, and there were 3 outer coverings, one of goat hair, one of ram skins, and one of sea cow hides. A wooden framework supported the curtains. Some have suggested meanings for the colors in the curtains: white for holiness, blue for the sky, purple for royalty, and crimson for blood. A curtain divided the tabernacle into 2 rooms. The most holy place measured 10 cubic squares. It was a perfect cube, symbolizing the perfection of God. The Ark of the Covenant was located in the most holy place. The table and lampstand were in the holy place. Bible students today at times differ in their understanding of how the tabernacle looked or how it was constructed. However, Moses saw the exact pattern while with God on Mount Sinai. Obviously, he knew what the directions meant. That's kind of the thing. We know there's curtains, we know there's rods. How they exactly hung on which side and how much of the poles were revealed and not revealed. Those are the little details we could debate and just say Moses knew, and we just don't know for sure. So let's jump into it. We have 36 verses, so I'll split it in half maybe. 1 to 14 would be a section. Maybe then 15 to 30, 36 would be another, I guess. Does someone care to read the first 14 verses? Sharon? Okay.
Make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of finely twisted linen and blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, with cherubim woven into them by a skilled worker. All the curtains are to be the same size, 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Join 5 of the curtains together and do the same with the other 5. Make loops of blue material along the edge of the end curtain in one set. Do the same with the end curtain in the other set. Make 50 loops on one curtain, 50 loops on the end curtain of the other set, with the loops opposite each other. Then make 50 gold clasps and use them to fasten the curtains together so that the tabernacle is a unit. Make curtains of goat hair for the tent over the tabernacle, 11 altogether. All 11 curtains are to be the same size, 30 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Join 5 of the curtains together into one set and the other 6 into another set. Fold the 6th curtain double at the front of the tent. Make 50 loops along the edge of the end curtain in one set and also along the edge of the end curtain in the other set. Then make 50 bronze clasps and put them in the loops to fasten the tent together as a unit. As for the additional length of the tent curtains, the half curtain that is left over is to hang down at the rear of the tabernacle. The tent curtains will be a cubit longer on both sides. What is left will hang over the sides of the tabernacle so as to cover it. Make for the tent a covering of ram skins dyed red, and over that a covering of the other durable leather. Good.
Your translation is different from mine. You got through 14?
Yeah.
Okay. I would just pause there for a second. I mean, what characteristics of God do we start to see in this text? I mean, I think if you're like me, your mind kind of glazes over a little bit with all this information. But let's step back a second. What is this? Does this text tell you about God?
He's very specific.
Specific, yeah. He's a detail-oriented. They don't just go out there in the wilderness and throw something up and see that it's about this size, and
It's not just a bunch of loops, it's 50.
it's 50 loops. Yeah, and make sure there's not 49 or 51. So he's very specific. What other things, characteristics of God? Yeah, sure.
The color choices and the meanings behind it. And I have to ask a question.
Yeah.
My home congregation, Martin Luther, was built exactly like our Wausau campus. That was the era, and all the churches in Appleton and Neenah were all built the same.
Yeah.
But ours was the only one that behind the altar was the red draped velvet. Most of the other churches had the cross. Ours was the red velvet with the cross in front of it.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, as I read this, if maybe there's some meaning behind that. As a little kid, I never thought of it, but there maybe was.
I think with anything, maybe somebody just said, well, this is how our old church looked. We had red curtains, but it is symbolic, I think, yeah, of Christ's blood and sacrifice. I think red was very much a chosen color for that reason, over purple and white and such. So, so it's kind of interesting. It's like our church. If you think about upstairs, you have kind of three sections. You have where the people sit. You have then where people would come up to the altar rail in previous days when you'd come up the first steps and you go into that section where behind the pulpit, and then you have the altar in the next section. And that's not a coincidence. That is church architecture telling you kind of like, well, you're in the assembly of God in your pew. You know, you're in the holy place when you take communion, and then the pastor goes into the most holy place, right? They don't have an ark there, but you have an altar. And in olden days, the architecture probably would have been shifted a little bit. And maybe you see these in, some really old Catholic churches and old movies, that even in part of the church, there's almost like a wall. It's like where our communion rail is, there would be almost like something going up to the ceiling with pillars. And maybe you could see through, and the priest would go back there and pray. And communion would probably be more down on the floor. So this concept of three layers was something that the early church used, and they did it with curtains as well. So it seems weird for us to think that a pastor went behind kind of a pseudo wall and prayed. That people couldn't see him, right? We're all about visually, and I want to see the pastor, but that was something in some early churches where, maybe the prayer of the church was said and his back was to you, and he was kind of hidden a little bit. And I think as time progressed, you lose some of that symbolism of the gathering space looking like the temple. Right now you have the new church just has one big room, right, and that sort of thing. But not right or wrong today, but interesting. So Wayne, you had a thought?
In Milwaukee on the north side near Timmerman Field is the Greek Orthodox Church. I think it's called Ascension. The building is shaped like Christ's crown of thorns. It's round. There is a dome to the top, almost like a football stadium in Dallas, and blue. And inside there is a wall made of like gold bars, partial, with an opening in behind that, and there are icons, pictures of the saints on that, so that the priest can go into the altar area. Part of it is hidden, but you can see in there, it's sort of that same idea of there's a wall, like in this tabernacle.
Yeah, so gradually, yeah, the idea of separate rooms or compartments it's kind of faded away, but you can still find it. I was in an Egyptian Coptic church where they had this huge back wooden structure, and they had like a curtain over and like a door in one area, and they said they only opened it during Easter, to symbolize the tomb. Otherwise, it was closed. And so beautiful things like that you see people have done. Yeah, so kind of thank you for sharing that. And they used to call it a rood screen. It sounds rude, but it's a rood screen, like a curtain that would be up by the altar that the pastor would go behind, and so it just the characteristics of God. Like he's very detail oriented. He's very specific. I think he's very practical. He's really talking to them about things that they could attain pretty reasonably, right? This is not Solomon's temple in beauty, but this is going to be nice. He wants them to give him their best. Naomi, you have a thought?
I know the courtyard was used for sacrifices, but did the people also come in to the courtyard to worship there?
Well, I would say their sacrifices were worship,
Yeah,
definitely.
so you would bring your animal and you would watch what happened.
Yeah. Because of the size, I'm kind of curious, how long you could linger there. I don't have any reason to think that this is a place you would hear a sermon per se or sing as a group. But maybe some of that's happening. Yeah. You can imagine these, like even the big festivals, these big sacrifices for all the people. It's going to be like a sold out rally, right? People are going to want to be there and can't all fit. So because I don't think you're going to bring children into that area until they're 12, you might have really a bunch of guys, frankly. But that's a good question, and I guess I'm dancing around it to say I don't know exactly.
I was just thinking of the temple.
Yeah.
There were categories in the courtyard, weren't there?
Right, and there's places outside of the temple proper where people would gather. But for now, we just have the tabernacle, right?
Yes.
And I think People's Bible said that the temple was twice as big as the tabernacle, which
Yes.
we're thinking half a football field compared to maybe a football field. Still not that big when you consider it's how big of the usage you got. So, well, one thing I thought too, the Lord said to put cherubim in the curtains. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
That kind of reminded me of stained glass windows a little bit. Like you have beauty built into these curtains, and just the thought that, would God be pleased with stained glass windows? I think, yeah, I think, they weren't worshiping the images of angels in their curtains. They weren't worshiping the angels on the Ark of the Covenant, but they did have statues, right? They did have things that showed God's glory and His beauty. The radical Reformation, the Reformation without Luther was very against images and stained glass windows, and but you'd say, well, God did really have them, and they weren't idols, right? They weren't worshipped. So I thought that was an interesting detail, and that God wanted. So maybe continuing on then, verses 15 to 30. You can chop it up.
I'll do it.
Wait, okay.
You shall make upright boards of acacia wood to serve as a framework for the dwelling. The length of each board is to be 15 feet, and the width of each board is to be 27 inches. There are to be 2 pegs on each board for connecting them to the next board. That is the way you are to make all the boards for the dwelling. Make these boards for the dwelling. Make 20 boards for the south side. Make 40 socket bases of silver to be placed under the 20 boards. 2 sockets to go under the first board to hold its 2 pegs, and 2 sockets to go under the next board for its 2 pegs. For the second side of the dwelling, the north side, make 20 boards with 40 socket bases of silver. 2 sockets to go under the first board, and 2 sockets to go under the next board. For the far side of the dwelling, the west side, make 6 boards. Then make 2 boards for each of the back corners of the dwelling. For the 2 corners, there are to be twin boards from the bottom to the top, but they are to be joined at the top by 1 ring. Both corner pieces are to be made like this. Altogether, there will be 8 boards with silver socket bases, 16 socket bases, 2 socket bases to go under each board. You shall make crossbars of acacia wood, 5 crossboards for the boards on one side of the dwelling, 5 crossboards for the board on the other side of the dwelling, and 5 crossbars for the boards on the back side of the dwelling on the west. The middle bar, placed halfway up the boards, shall pass through them from one end of the boards to the other end. Overlay the boards with gold. Attach gold rings to them to hold the crossbars, and overlay the crossbars with gold. You shall set up the dwelling according to the design that is being shown to you on the mountain. Is that where you said stop?
Yeah. Can someone finish it off for us? Sure? Okay.
Make a curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, finely twisted linen, with cherubim worked into it by a skilled craftsman. Hang it with gold hooks on 4 posts of acacia wood, overlaid with gold and standing on 4 silver bases. Hang the curtain from the clasps, and place the Ark of the Testimony behind the curtain. The curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place. But put the atonement cover on the Ark of the Testimony in the most holy place. Place the table outside the curtain on the north side of the tabernacle, and put the lampstand opposite to the south side. For the entrance to the tent, make a curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, finely twisted linen, the work of an embroiderer. Make gold hooks for this curtain and 5 posts of acacia wood overlaid with gold, and cast 5 bronze bases for them.
That's my eyes.
Alright. So
It's like, whoa.
So the sun is going to rise in the east, and it's going to, shine right through the front doors, and then it's going to set over the west, over the most holy place, and very,
My
very
eyes just
beautiful.
glazed over.
Your eyes glazed over. That's fine. Acacia wood and silver rings, and yeah, it's a lot. But again, I guess you appreciate how the Lord wants this to be. It's a movable, portable tent, but it is going to be connected together, right? And it's going to be built in a way that it can be rolled up and transported very efficiently by the Levites, who are, God's bagmen, I suppose, right? They're going to be carrying everything for him. And you think they're going to be camping around this, right? I mean, this is the center of everything they believe and do and cherish. Anybody attacks them, it's going to be the last thing that their enemies can touch. So,
How long did it take to do this? Would you imagine?
what I imagine.
I mean, think of the detail and the craftsmanship. Did everybody know how to do this?
I was thinking about that a bit. We got a bunch of stonecutters out in the wilderness, probably, don't we? But the Egyptians probably had them make garments and things of that nature as well. So they definitely know how to forge golden calves. So a bunch of rings and coating wood in things wouldn't be that difficult. I wonder if there isn't a aspect of selflessness, right? Where's all this gold going to come from and effort? They're not going to get paid for it.
Did they take
So-
that much with them when they left?
They did when they left, right? But this is their piggy bank that he's telling them to start spending on this.
Wow.
So it's a big undertaking.
Even that piggy bank then was a plan of God, that they took all the right stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how would you know what to take?
Well, I mean, you take anything gold or silver, right? But
And the precious stones and the coloring and just everything.
I mean, it would be like asking, your cowboys to melt down their silver coins they took from the Wells Fargo wagon, and bake something beautiful. Not a great analogy, but it's there.
When you had 1 million people here, you had probably a large number of people that were talented at this and another that was talented at that and stuff like this. So I'm sure that they came up with the craftsmen that were talented, just like at the time of David, and Asaph was a good musician and stuff like that, and Ezra was a scribe, and they had their various things. And the acacia wood grew in the desert where they were, although it had thorns. They had to get the thorns off before they could use it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much trade would have had to have taken place to acquire some of these things, like the sea cow skins. But as you can imagine, anybody traveling to Egypt for trade is wanting to stop by the Israelites. This is a gift in the middle of your journey, maybe. I mean, they're in the wilderness, yes, but where there's money to be made, there's probably traders that will find you. So, but I don't know. Then too, you could have people that were told, hey, there's 100 of you. We need these manatee-like skins for the temple. You guys have to go on your trip. You guys are going to the Red Sea, and you're gonna get these and come back. So that's very possible too. I mean, if it's not traders coming with some of these things that are common, there may be expeditions to go find it. Which, again, I said to somebody recently, I think it was maybe Margaret and Myron. Don't think that they're only in one place, for a couple of weeks. I mean, we're talking 40 years, and maybe it's speculative, maybe, but are they in 8 to 12 different places? So that this place, the tabernacle will move, but it's maybe sometimes in one place for a number of years.
That would be later though, because the first year they were traveling to the new land.
Right.
And the 12 spies went, and they weren't pronounced the 40 years until the spies came back, and only 2 of them trusted in the Lord.
Right. So this is after the spies that the tabernacle becomes a thing, right? Sharon?
Well, we haven't gotten to that point, but God in his perfection of detail had already had two gentlemen in mind, craftsmen who would head up the whole thing. In chapter 31, Aholiab and Bezalel, and it says he put into them, he filled them with the wisdom and understanding to do these things, and that he had already equipped skilled workers by God's providential, spirit to work with them. So he, after he gives all these directions, he already has the artisans in mind and set up to execute
Yeah.
all this.
So, so sorry to get my facts mixed up. So we're getting the tabernacle before we have the spies coming back, but then again, it's almost like God knew, though, right? It's almost like God knew they weren't going to march into Jerusalem and set up shop. So that's the interesting thing about the Lord, right? He gives you something that, in instructions to do something that you soon later realize how it worked into his plan. Get you into the paradox of, like, not time travel, but how God sees the future and already works things out in advance of man's decisions and fears and such. Yeah. Well, the questions in the sheet there. The tabernacle itself. Oh, sorry. Read Hebrews 8:5 and 9:23. According to these verses, what did the tabernacle represent? Hebrews 8:5. Someone's got it for a read. Kelly, thanks.
They serve, I'm gonna go back to 4. Now, if he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the law. They serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly things. But when Moses was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by God, saying, "See that you make everything according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain." It occurred to me that the thing would never have been built if he said, "Build me a tabernacle." They needed plans, they needed the blueprint. If God hadn't done it, can you imagine doing it by committee? I mean, would it have ever been built? Would it have been a hodgepodge? What would it have been? What a blessing that he gave them, the blueprint, that he told them how to do it.
Yeah. Otherwise, would it have looked something like the Egyptians had? More so, right? So Hebrews tells us, and we don't. You want to do 9:23 as well?
You want me to read?
Yeah.
Okay. Thus it was necessary for the copies of the heavenly things to be purified with these rites, but the heavenly things themselves were better with better sacrifices than these. And all of this was talking about the law and the blood purification.
Passage is a little not as helpful as the other, but the tabernacle really symbolized God was with them. That's really what you have here, right? God is with his people, and
it says in the EHV, it's a copy of the heavenly sanctuary. That's what
Yeah, it's a miniature of heaven. Yeah, and is it, you know, I guess the mind quickly goes to how literal should you take that? Does heaven have? I mean, we know heaven is a square. What is it? Revelation tells us 12 miles by 12 miles by 12 miles. I think it is. You know, in that respect, there are a lot of similarities. The Lord loves these. And that's the thing. 10 by 10 by 10 holy place is a number of perfection. You know, it's God's holy place. 12 by 12 by 12 by 12 miles. Is that symbolic? Is that literal? Is that American miles? I don't know. But it is, you know, symbolic of, you know, this is perfection and where God dwells. What we do know for sure is the temple. I mean, this is where God would be, right? The high priest would go into the most holy place and be with the Lord. And heaven is going to be like that, right? You're going to go and be with the Lord. Yeah. Instead of an ark, there's a throne at the center of the new Jerusalem and the new temple. So. Question 2, why was it vital that Moses set up the tabernacle according to the plan shown on the mountain? Kind of just said it, really.
Because that's the way God wanted it.
All right, that's where God wanted it. That's where he was going to be. And I thought, too, you know, God didn't want him to take any shortcuts on this. Maybe that's why we are told exactly how many curtain rods and holes and clasps we need. If any of you have ever had a contractor build something for you, that's your fear, right? They're going to cut corners. God wanted this perfect and good, and
It also had to be disassembled and put back up again every time they moved. So
could it not be that this is written down not because they're just the greatest blueprints ever, but they are going to have to last for 40 years. Maybe Moses doesn't want to have to repeat himself every time they move and put this up again. I don't know. I go to Key to Life and I take pictures of everything, and then I set up for worship, and then when we put the chairs back down, I go back to my picture and put it back the way it was. Cuts down on arguing and confusion. They had the blueprints, right, for generations to come, and yeah, good point. I'm skipping number 3. This isn't like the second grader class of let's draw something. Sorry. Don't put your colored pencils away. We'll go number 4. The architecture of our church buildings is not regulated like that of the tabernacle. Why not? Why don't we have some blueprints that we must follow for every worship space?
Because God didn't tell us. Didn't give it. Here are the directions for your church throughout time.
All right, so
Permanent structure.
there's no blueprint given for a New Testament worship space.
Permanent structure.
It's a permanent structure.
didn't need to be mobile.
Yeah. The New Testament focuses more on God dwelling with his people wherever they are, not in a building that meets certain specifications, right? So, if there was one building that God was at, might be a little bit different, but now he dwells with his people. And really, the temple, again, it was their flag, it was their anthem, it was their nationality, it really was who they were. Cool. less today, right? Our church is not our cultural thing as it was for them. What in the New Testament corresponds to the tabernacle in the Old Testament? So what's God's house? We are, right? We are being built into a spiritual house. 1 Peter 2, 4, and 5, right? So we are the body of Christ, being built on the foundation. So I promised you chapter 27. As I hand these out, any questions on chapter 26? So, let's talk a little bit about the altar, the courtyard, and the oil for the lamp. Chapter 27, who could read that for us? Joan? Okay,
How far do you want me to go?
go for it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Build an altar of acacia wood, 3 cubits high. It is to be square, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. Make a horn at each of the 4 corners, so that the horns in the altar are of one piece, and overlay the altar with bronze. Make all its utensils of bronze, its pots to remove the ashes, its shovels, sprinkling bowls, meat forks, and fire pans. Make a grating for it, a bronze network, and make a bronze ring at each of the 4 corners of the network. Put it under the ledge of the altar so that it is halfway up the altar. Make poles of acacia wood for the altar and overlay them with bronze. The poles are to be inserted into the ring so that they will be on 2 sides of the altar when it is carried. Make the altar hollow, out of boards. It is to be made just as you were shown on the mountain. Make a courtyard for the tabernacle. The south side shall be 100 cubits long and is to have curtains of finely twisted linen, with 20 posts and 20 bronze bases with silver hooks and bands on the posts. The north side shall be 100 cubits long and is to have curtains, with 20 posts and 20 bronze bases with silver hooks and bands on the posts. The west end of the courtyard shall be 50 cubits wide and have curtains with 10 posts and 10 bases. On the east side, toward the sunrise, the courtyard shall also be 50 cubits wide. Curtains 15 cubits long are to be on one side of the entrance with 3 posts and 3 bases, and curtains 15 cubits long are to be on the other side with 3 posts and 3 bases. For the entrance to the courtyard, provide a curtain 20 cubits long with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and finely twisted linen, the work of an embroiderer, with 4 posts and 4 bases. All the posts around the courtyard are to have silver bands and hooks and bronze bases. The courtyard shall be 100 cubits long and 50 cubits wide, with curtains of finely twisted linen, 5 cubits high, and with bronze bases. All the other articles used in the service of the tabernacle, whether their function, including all the tent pegs for it, and those for the courtyard, are to be of bronze. Command the Israelites to bring you a clear oil of pressed olives for the light, so that the lamps may be kept burning. In the tent of meeting, keep the curtain that is in the front of the testimony. Aaron and his sons are to keep the lamps burning before the Lord from evening till morning. This is to be a lasting ordinance among the Israelites for the generations to come.
Alright. So don't let our altar guild members complain about candle oil and not having enough, right? Keep it burning all night. So, not a cheap thing today, not a cheap thing back then either. I guess I did appreciate that the oil was clear, so it burns without smoke. We don't have a big room for these candles, right? You get smoky pretty quick in there if you're not careful. We had a scandal here 2 years ago, and our candles were smoking really badly. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Apparently, if you look down on our oil lamps, it had the wick in the middle, but then there's 2 holes. They kind of let it breathe and burn without making smoke. Well, the holes got plugged with like carbon. And so for the life of us, we were so frustrated with the wicks and the candle. And here all we had to do was clean out the carbon holes. And now the candles don't smoke. But yeah, it was like a Twisted Sister concert after some Sundays. We had so much smoke up in the top of church. I'm like, what's going on? The filters were getting dirty like every 3 weeks, and we were replacing them. We just can't be doing it. Anyway, if your candles start sooting, then they're not breathing well. So, all right. So the altar 1 to 7. The altar of burnt offering was square, 5 cubits by 5 cubits by 3 cubits. It had horns at each corner. It was over so that they had like horn-like corners. It was overlaid with bronze and was to stand in the courtyard. A ledge around the sides of the altar was for the priest to stand on when offering sacrifices. So my cheap image up here with this big square grill, basically, right, with a ramp going up to it. It's about 5 feet tall. It has ventilation, which I suppose Benjamin Franklin stole when he invented the potbelly stove. So to keep it burning and burning well. One thing I came away thinking about this is, today we think about the cross, right? You think about, go to the foot of the cross and hold on to the cross, and it's a source of strength and vitality for us as Christians. I think the altar really is being talked about in the same way here. You take your offering and your sin and your guilt to the altar. You're in distress. You go to the horns of the altar. You hold on to the altar. In other places of Scripture, you're fleeing from someone that wants to hurt you. You go to the altar, quite literally. And I think maybe we can appreciate it for what it was. It was a barbecue grill for the people that they offered sacrifices on, but it was also it was at the core of their relationship with God. It was kind of their cross until the cross came. And that's why it's a beautiful grill, right? It's bronze and it's overlaid with these beautiful horns. It is something to behold. Not the prettiest, right? We wouldn't say the cross is a pretty thing, but by faith it is, right? It is. So that's just some of my thoughts on that. As you talk about the altar and such. The courtyard was 100 cubits by 50 cubits. It was enclosed by hanging of white linen suspended by pillars. The entrance to the courtyard was on the east. Wayne, you have thought?
I don't know if it's the same place or not, but these don't look like horns on this bottom right
Yeah,
corner to
this
me.
is-
But I've seen a picture where it looks like heads of cattle with actual horns. It's someplace on something. I don't know if that's a different thing.
So yeah, Pastor Markey gave you that image,
Yeah.
that handout last time.
Yeah.
But they don't
They
have
don't
the
look
horns.
like
They
horns
don't
to
have the
me.
horns on there.
Well, you can think of a horn even like a rhinoceros horn,
Yeah.
or
These actually look like
Yeah.
they were maybe they're on the thing that's the big basin but they looked like actually bulls' heads and horns sticking out all around. Like,
Yeah, that might be an artist's interpretation, but I couldn't say it's completely false. Any other thoughts on that point? Yeah, Denise?
My self-study Bible says typical Near Eastern design element, practical, such horns could help hold the wood and sacrifices in place. Priests may also have tied sacrificial animals to them during the preparation for sacrifice. So the rhinoceros horn image would make more sense to me as far as more of a just a pointed.
Yeah, I guess I would lean personally, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room by any means. I lean personally to they're more ornamental than they are. Your study Bible has an interesting point, making them kind of useful. I don't know. I think most things coming to the altar are going to be dead, right? You're going to slaughter it, and then you're going to throw it up on there. But
Well, it says references 1 Kings 1:50.
yeah, what does that say? Could you look it up? Well, I'll move on to another thought over here while she's looking that up.
No, it just hit me that everything in this area is overlaid with bronze, where the tabernacle and everything in there was overlaid with gold. Now, gold being more precious of the two, I think it is, like in
Yeah.
Olympic, it's gold, silver, bronze, so it's like lesser. And so, again, the tabernacle being God's precious area for meeting, and then everything else was not to waste gold, was just done with bronze in the outer court.
So when the kid asks, why does first place get gold and not bronze? You'd say, well, God had this order in the tabernacle, and bronze was always third place, and silver was just as nice, but gold was the best. I like that. I really do. It does make a lot of sense to me. If you're worried about germs and bacteria, I think you would want gold, right?
Silver.
Or silver, not bronze. But so I don't feel like there's a health element there or a cleanliness element. It does seem like a beauty and prestige. This is the more rare. This is the more precious. Yeah. So back to you, Denise. What did you find for the kings or the horns?
Just a second.
Sure.
Exodus, where did I read Exodus 21:12?
while she's looking,
Yeah.
here's a picture on Google. It actually looks like if they sawed off a cow horn and stuck it in, and then it's like that.
Yeah, these horns that stick out, like a cow horn. Yeah, I mean they're definitely. I mean, in the horn symbol, in the horn phrase does seem to symbolize anything like a corner post.
The First Kings isn't very helpful. It just says Adonijah feared Solomon, so he rose and went and took hold of the horns of the altar. And the self-study Bible says, horns of the altar, one guilty of unintentional manslaughter could flee to the refuge of the altar. Apparently this applied to other crimes punishable by death. And it references Exodus 21:12 and 13.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. Like, so you go to you still hear about this once in a while. People think like if they're in church they can't get arrested or something. You probably never heard of this, but I've heard this from people before.
Sanctuary.
It's a sanctuary, right? Yeah. And you're like, no, that's not exactly how it works. You know, there's no law saying you're in church. I think I was talking to a homeless person once that told me that. But that's where it comes from. It comes from this idea in the Old Testament that you could go to the altar and you couldn't be. You bought yourself some time, and I guess, you know, you're not supposed to be killed because it was unintentional manslaughter, but you know the heat of the moment, this guy is raging mad at you. So you run to God, and he will calm down, and maybe justice will prevail. So it wasn't like you could commit any sin and then you could go to the altar and you were free from it. But you did realize maybe your personal safety was in danger. So in those cases, we have the example of people grabbing it, right? And again, it feels like a figurative, an artistic feature more than a utility feature of the temple. Yeah, so we add these two items, the altar and the courtyard, and we're skipping number 1, yeah, not drawing these. 2, what main activity could be carried out in the courtyard? We kind of talked about that earlier. Maybe there's some worship, I guess, but mainly that worship takes the form of sacrifices, yeah. I mean, you got the mornings and the evening sacrifices, and you have the guilt offering and the wave offerings, and all that's happening. The light burning in the candlesticks represented the light of truth. What do you think the clear oil, which was to be used as fuel, represented? This question I thought was kind of strange. Maybe it makes sense to you. Yeah?
Could it be
Susan?
God's word?
Yeah, that's the way the editor takes it. Kind of like,
I can't read it, but
it's clear, it's pure.
well, that's what fuels that light of truth, and the only truth there is God's truth, which is His word.
Yeah, the editor says oil is often a sign of the Holy Spirit. So you're anointed with oil, you're anointed with the Holy Spirit. Jesus was anointed with the Spirit. The Spirit would remind Jesus' disciples of everything Jesus said and inspire them to write His word. I don't know. I think it's kind of simpler than that. I think you have Jesus. God is light, and He's the pure light. There's no darkness at all in Him. I think you just, again, you put it down to this is not the cheap oil. This is the good stuff. This is pure. This is who God is. And the same with, maybe we can go back to the bronze altar. Why is the altar not gold? Well, because it's covered in sin, right? But where you get to God in the most holy place, He is pure. He's without blemish. This bronze plated things and these silver plated things will rust and tarnish, but God won't, right? That's why gold is gold. You drop it in the bottom of the sea and you can find it 500 years later and it's not rusty or corroded. It's still gold. You can't do that with anything else. So
Bronze is hard, maybe the sacrifice would melt the gold, whereas it won't melt the bronze.
So a science question about
Temperature.
melting temperatures of bronze versus gold. I think gold is higher, but I don't think they should be getting close to anything that would. I'd have to look that up, but would altars? Do we have altars of gold in other cultures? Maybe. At any rate, I do think there is a limitation to how much gold you can have, or such. But maybe maybe look at the last question. How does today's church keep the lamp of truth burning brightly? I thought that was a good question. Keep God's light burning brightly through preaching the truth, right? Continue letting His word shine and be taught clearly. So, you know, I've been asked, why do we have candles in the front of church? Is it because Luther had them and because the Catholics had them, we just still keep them around? Like, no, we have candles because they symbolize Jesus as the light of the world, and they also remind us that, you know, his truth is being shown forth in this place. So, Quinn?
I learned something. The melting point of bronze is 1742 depending on the alloy, but the melting point of gold is 1948.
200 degrees hotter. I can tell you, I got my wood stove up to 900 degrees once in Washington, and it was shaking. It was like, it was as hot as Hades. So my guess would we wouldn't even be getting this close to well, how hot is this open pit
Just as hot.
stove? Maybe 300-400 if you're lucky. Probably not over 1,000.
Just as hot as a New York coal-fired pizza oven. 900.
Ask Lucas what the crematorium is. I bet it's, yeah. So bronze is probably safe, but yet they're skilled enough to make it's interesting. Like, they had to literally coat wood and these rods and these rings with gold and silver. It's a lot of work. So blacksmiths in the wilderness, right? Blacksmiths. Well, next time I think we are in a good place. We'll start talking about the priestly garments, and we'll move from Bed Bath and Beyond to Kohl's and J.C. Penney or whatever's still in business. So, all right, let's close with prayer. Heavenly Father, we know you gave the people a tabernacle for a very special reason, so that you would dwell with them and keep them guided in their daily lives and until they joined you in heaven. May our church be such a place where your word is taught, where we grow in our faith, and we are continually following you, guided by your promises and protection. Bless our Thanksgiving. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above the heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son,